There we go. Way too many pockets. So today I will go ahead and kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what we're going to be talking about this morning. We're going to be talking about sin. Now, before you get up and run out on me, just give me a little bit of a chance, because today we're not presenting the idea, the concept of sin the way that you've had it presented before. We're going to be talking about what happens when I sin, maybe why I sin, right? Why is it that I sin? Why is it that I seem to do things that I'm not supposed to do? And then we're also going to be talking about what it is that Scripture says, which is really the main point, right? So before we go any further, the first thing that we've got to do is we've got to define what sin is. Now listen, before we put our definition of sin up there, I need you to know this. This is not the perfect definition. This is not necessarily the best definition even. This is simply the working definition that we're going to use today as we talk about sin, so that when I talk about sin, you know what I'm talking about. So sin is anything that we do that is not the way that God says is best. Therefore, it's the opposite of what God's best is for me. That is going to be, for today, our working definition of sin. Because a lot of times when we think of sin, we think of good, bad, we think of right, wrong, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But just for today, I want you to try to think about sin in this definition. Sin is anything that we do that is not the way that God says is best. It's the opposite of what God's best is for me. So implication of that statement, and for those of you that have reached the point where your frontal cortex is completely developed, you understand this. Some of us don't. That was a Harrison joke. We've been talking about that a lot lately. He's like, I'm 25. Harrison's going to understand this. He's going to get this completely. Implication. When I sin, it's because I don't trust that God's way is the best way. Now, you may think, that is so elementary. And it is. It really is. If anything that is not God's best for me is sin, that means that if I do anything that is sin, that means I'm just not trusting that God's way is the best way. I'm just not trusting that that's the way that it should be. In fact, that is literally, you say, well, that sounds like something they should be teaching over in 252 and First Look. It is. It is. Literally, that's the way we teach sin. It's not God's best, and if I don't trust God, then I'm not choosing God's best. For instance, to kind of give you an example, to flesh that out a little bit, I've talked a lot about how I have an ongoing battle with one particular thing: food. It is an ongoing battle. It is a battle that sometimes I'm winning. It is a battle that oftentimes I'm losing. I got on the scales this morning just so that I could give you a little bit. I'm not telling you how much I weighed. I'm just going to tell you right now, I am in a season of loss. Not in the good way, as in losing the battle. I got on the scales and it was ugly when what popped up. And it told me, it said, okay, you're losing right now, but not the way you want to be losing. So I have this battle with food. Now, there's absolutely, positively nothing wrong with food. Nothing. Food is here for our use. It is necessary. I think it's here for our pleasure, for our enjoyment. I think that is part of God's creation for us. But when I eat more than I need to eat, it can become sin. For instance, and it's going to sound awful specific, because it is awful specific. I'm driving home from work. It's been a particularly difficult, stressful day. And what do I see but that billboard? You know the one, over there on 22nd Street. Big old McDonald's billboard, right? It's right there. It's so big. It's so gaudy and flashy. And I think about it. I begin thinking. I see it, right? I begin seeing it, and then I begin thinking about it. And I begin thinking about the French fries. I'm a fan of the French fries. I love Big Macs, by the way. I like a lot of the stuff at McDonald's. I really like a Big Mac. I really like an apple pie. So I'm thinking about these three things, right? Because I'm hungry. I'm always hungry. And today I'm feeling a little bit sorry for myself, because it's been a particularly stressful day. So I start, my eyes have seen it, right? And now my mind begins to really dwell on it. And I begin to think about how good that McDonald's number one, because that's what the Big Mac is. It's the number one. That's how good it would be. I can't stop thinking about it. You know, the hot fries, salty, crispy, all that. Ketchup. I don't know why McDonald's ketchup's better, but it is. To me, it is. It's just better. The Big Mac, it's got a third bun, y'all. Think about that. You think about that. It's got 3 buns. And you tell me it's not one of the greatest sandwiches that's ever been invented. Say again? It is the greatest sandwich that's ever been invented. We're going to talk after church. Two all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, all on a what? Sesame seed bun. And I love a Big Mac. I open the app because that's the way I do it now, because it's just that much easier. I mean, it's so easy. I open the app, I look at everything that I can order, and I order. I get my Big Mac, I get my fries, I get my apple pie. Do I stop there? No, because I don't have to, because it's all there for me. I can get whatever I want, and so that's what I do. And that's the story of my life. I want all of it, everything that I can have, even though I know I shouldn't do it, even though I know it's not good for me, even though I know it's going to create a lot of other issues for me, weight problems, health problems, life problems. And you may be, well, that's just food. Come on, man. But listen, it's the same standard for everything. It's not necessarily the bad things that hurt us. It's too much, or it's too much of good things sometimes. And that's my battle. Is food a sin? No, it's not a sin. However, overeating is. So what's behind all of that, right? What is the base layer of all of that? Why do I do that to myself? Why do I continually choose to do that? Well, because I want what I want, even if it goes against what God says is best for me. And that is what makes it sin. It's me wanting what I want in spite of what God says is best. So, for just a second, I'd like you to kind of think about, you don't have to say anything out loud, you don't have to raise your hand, none of that, but just think about a recent sin, maybe for you. Listen, we are ripe for sin right now. Because I don't know who else's heart rate was running at about 240 last night at about 11 o'clock, like mine. I mean, at one point, I literally am sitting there going, I'm about to stroke out. I'm literally about to stroke out. So I just, maybe that sin involves that 2 hours of your life. I don't know. But just think about it. It doesn't even have to be a big one. It could be like mine, getting 2 Big Macs instead of 1, needing that 6th bun because, 3 just wouldn't do it. And so I just want you to think about that thing that you did that you knew wasn't God's best for you. Now, maybe you particularly struggle with some big sin from your past, maybe a big sin from your present. Look, I'm not telling you. I just want you to think. Have that in your mind. Has anyone ever, stolen time on your chime sheet? Raise your hand. No, I'm just kidding. Don't raise your hand. You don't have to raise your hand. So what is it for you? Is it something to do with money, right? Maybe you struggle with money. Maybe it's something sexual. Maybe it's a particular person or a relationship. Maybe it's revolving around power, control, pleasure, seeking pleasure, relationships, emotions, wanting to be seen a certain way by certain people. Whatever it is. We could stand up here all morning and go through the list of what it could be. What is it that continually trips you up? What is it? And whatever it is, it's your biggest struggle. What is it that keeps eating your lunch? And as we go through this morning, I want you to think about it from our perspective of what is sin. Well, sin is anything that's not God's best. It's anything that goes against what God says is best for me. And listen, I believe God is the creator. I believe God is my designer. Therefore, as the designer, he gets to determine how best his design functions. So, with that in mind, this morning we're going to talk about another reality check. This is our 4th one in this series called Reality Checks that John, the gospel writer, the apostle, wants to offer us. But before we do, we're going to hit the pause button. And again, we're going to ask this question. What's all behind it? Right? Why? Why do I continually do it? Why do I continually to not choose what is God's best? Now, interestingly enough, as we're going to see, John kind of interrupts the flow of his letter a little bit. He's been talking, he's kind of been on one specific topic for a while, and then he just kind of stops, and he totally changes the subject almost, because he wants to offer this group of Christians that he's writing to a warning. He's wanting to offer them a warning. Now, we got to remember, John is speaking specifically to the same people that he's been speaking to the whole time. Now, we don't know exactly who John wrote this letter to. Most scholars agree that probably John is writing this letter to the Christ followers in Ephesus, which is where John happens to be. He is kind of the lead. He's kind of the pastor there in Ephesus. And so most scholars agree he's probably writing this letter specifically to this group of people who are a combination of baby Christ followers, young Christ followers and a group of more mature Christ followers. The point being, he's writing this to Christians. By the time that John writes this, it's somewhere in the 80s AD. That's when this letter was written. So what's that, 50-ish years after the resurrection, after Jesus? And so we're half a century into the church age. And it's important for us to understand that John is writing primarily to Christians because the spiritual status of the recipients of the letter is unquestioned. We know who John is writing to. He is writing to disciples of Christ, and he's offering a very stern warning. He's saying, hey, you need to be aware of this. You need to pay attention to this so you will not fall. So here we go. 1 John chapter 2, verse 15. John writes, do not love this world, nor the things that this world can offer you, for when you love the world, the love of the Father is not in you. Okay, very well-known verse, maybe a verse that you have memorized. Do not love this world, or the things that the world can offer, because if you do, those two things, the love of the Father and love for the world, they can't coexist. There's going to be tension there, and eventually one's going to win out over the other. Followers of Jesus, if you've been a Christian, a Christ follower for very long, we kind of live with this tension, or at least I know I have lived with this tension before. Because my entire life, and I'm going all the way back from when I was very, very little, I've heard things like this. I've heard things like we are to be separate from the world and at the same time to be a part of the world. I've been told that many, many times. In fact, another way, kind of the pithy way that it was said to me is I heard things like this. Christians are in the world but not of the world. Anybody else heard that? And there's a tension there. Christians are to be in the world, but not of the world, but in the world. And there's some tension there. Because I was always left kind of with a feeling of the question, how? How is that possible? That sounds like a paradox to me. That sounds like something that, those two things cannot both be true. How can I be in the world, but not of the world, but in the world? How does that work? So for us to really better understand the paradox that John is kind of writing about, and it's really important for us to really understand what the word world means. What is John talking about when he talks about love for the world and the things that the world can offer? Because John's context in this statement might mean something a little bit different from what you were led to believe. Maybe not, but maybe so. To a certain degree for me, it's a different context. Because what John's declaration means is this. To be separated from the world is to be separated from the control of the world or the control of the evil one. That's the overarching context that John is trying to warn these baby, young, and more mature Christ followers. Don't be controlled by the evil one. Don't be controlled by love for the things that the world can offer you. Because listen, and this is not anything groundbreaking, but the world can offer a lot of very good things. And, as we've already talked about, a lot of very good things that, taken improperly, used improperly, experienced improperly, can be a very bad thing. Kind of touched on that a little bit last week, so we're going to try to unpack it a little bit more. One of the things I think we can all agree on, and if you disagree on this statement, that's okay, we can still be friends, but I think to a certain degree we can all agree that the world we live in today is a dark world. It's a dark world. It's a rough place. There's a lot of areas where we just know the world we live in is not meeting the standard, so to speak. And yet, even though we all would agree, if you open the newspaper, open up your phone, turn on the television, watch the news, it's like, negative, 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 negative. And right? Anytime you see something that isn't the way that it should be, you immediately know that it's not the way it ought to be. But have you ever wondered why it is you automatically know when something isn't the way it ought to be, how you know it isn't how it ought to be? I don't know that I explained that very well. Have you ever noticed how when something is bad, you just know inherently that it's bad without anyone having to tell you? It's interesting. You've probably never sat down and thought, why I just know that, but you do. You just know. We just know that the world is dark. We just know when things are not the way they ought to be. We just know. No one has to tell me. In fact, C.S. Lewis, as often C.S. Lewis has done, explains this tension really, really well and really, really simply. This humanity's ability to, humanity's ability to just know when things are not the way that they ought to be. This is what Lewis says. I think this is so interesting. Humanity's ability to identify an unjust, cruel world actually implies an innate knowledge of a moral, just standard. Humanity's ability to understand when things are not the way they ought to be actually implies that we have a knowledge that there is a standard out there. There is a moral law giver. Let me give you, this is not my example. This is once again C.S. Lewis adding to this. This is what he says. He says, the fact that you can identify a crooked line when you see it actually implies you know what a straight line is. In other words, since you know what a straight line looks like, you know when a line's not straight. When you see, because you know what good is, you have the ability to identify when something's not the way it ought to be. I always thought that was a very interesting way of looking at it. You know, you can go to any, 2, 3-year-old, and you can give them a whole bunch of lines, straight lines, right? And you give one that's not quite straight, they can immediately point it out and say, that's the crooked line. Well, how do they know? Because they know what a straight line is. How do you know when something's not the way that it ought to be? Because you know the way it ought to be. It's humans' innate ability to identify that there is a standard. There is a moral lawgiver. It's very interesting to me. This is the kind of stuff that kind of turns my wheels a little bit. We understand that the world is dark because we know that God is light. We know that God is the moral law giver. He is the standard giver. Therefore, anything that goes against his standard must, by definition, using our definition, because it's not best, it must be what? Sin. It's got to be wrong because we understand there's a standard giver. So the follower of Jesus, if we're to kind of follow down that trail a little bit further and kind of what John is explaining to these Christ followers, probably in Ephesus, that of course we are reading now 2,000 years later, the follower of Jesus can no longer function or live in darkness, can no longer be unbothered by it, can no longer be in love with it. Why? Because it's dark, it's wrong, it's unjust, it's cruel. It is the opposite of a straight line. It's crooked. It's the opposite of the light. There's a tension there for the Christ follower. That's all John's trying to explain. And yet, of course, the evil one is really, really good at kind of pulling us in the direction of that crooked line, pulling us in the direction of that not necessarily what's best for us. Because it's enticing, it's inviting, it looks good, kind of like that Big Mac. You see a picture, I keep going to the Big Mac. Some of you guys may not be, maybe you're a Whopper guy. I don't know, nothing wrong with the Whopper. I enjoy a good Whopper as much as the next fella. That was weird. No Whoppers today, y'all. Stay out of the Burger Kings. We are all Big Mac today, so we're going to stay. Got it. Big Mac. You see the picture of the Big Mac. It looks good, and then you think, man, I would enjoy that. It would be good. And then it's interesting, isn't it, how things just are enticing and inviting. And that's the reason that John is declaring, hey, you're going to have to resist some stuff because it's out there. But yet, and this is the tension. This is the paradox. We're also told that there is a world that the Christ follower is supposed to be a part of. Not to be resisted. It's a world filled with people. Filled with people. It's a world filled with people that are not yet connected to Jesus, that have not yet heard, maybe, possibly, the good news of great joy for all people, that unto you, right? All of that we talk about Christmas, and of course, the news about the resurrection. And so, although maybe now they're living in darkness, maybe, at the same time, the Christ follower is called to live and love among them, with them, pointing them with our words, our actions, and our reactions to this good news of Jesus. And so, again, there's a paradox there. And that's the point of what it means to be in the world but not of the world. Yeah, we're not supposed to be of the world where we are consumed in loving darkness and things that are against God's standard and what God says is best. But at the same time, we're right in the middle of the world that needs to be pointed in the direction of the good news for great joy that is for all people, that I have been told and I have been given, that I now have the responsibility to tell others. This is the world that, again, is described by Jesus himself, in fact. It's John, actually, that records this event in his biography of the life of Jesus, the Gospel of John. Apparently, one night, Jesus has a kind of almost, it would seem, the way it's written, a secret conversation with a Pharisee. The Pharisee's name was Nicodemus. And we're not given any of the details beyond this, that Jesus, as a part of the conversation with this Pharisee, says to Nicodemus, he says, God loved the world. See, we don't know if he overheard the conversation, if he was sitting in on the conversation. We don't know. We know that John heard the conversation because John's the one that wrote it down, right? And so John is acutely aware of what it means to be in the world but not of the world, and kind of this tension, this seemingly paradox way of living for the Christian. And so John is acutely aware of what it means because he heard Jesus say this, that God loves the world regardless. And he's also acutely aware because John actually saw Jesus live this out. It wasn't just words. John saw Jesus do things and say things and react in ways that absolutely was clear that he, in fact, did love the world. And so, with all of this information, all of this context, all of this experience, all of the richness that comes, think about it, John is writing this 50 years after the fact, so he has decades of life as a Christian following Christ in the church. He has all of this to draw from. And John says, we don't hate the world. On the contrary, we love the world because God loved the world. I heard Jesus say it. And then I watched him live it. So therefore, implication, since I am his follower, I too love the world. But at the same time, we don't love the darkness that is in the world. We don't love the darkness that comes from the evil one. That's what 1 John chapter 2, verse 15, it's that warning to Christians not to love the dark world. Don't love the evil in the world. Don't be connected to and infatuated with that. Instead, we're called to separate ourselves from that. So, John's warning really, I'm going to get this earpiece better. John's warning really for Christians is not to not love the world. It's the complete opposite of that. It's to not love the invisible spiritual system of evil that is ruled by the evil one. So here's what I mean by that. John's warning for Christians is don't love a life that is opposed to God's command. Don't love that life. Are we going to live that life from time to time? Absolutely. We talked about that ad nauseum of the last few weeks. We're going to sin. Sin is inevitable. However, don't love a life that is opposed to what God says is best for you. Don't crave a life that is opposed to God and His commandments, His standard. Don't live only for what you can get out of the world, human pleasure. Don't feed the ever-growing, and by the way, never satisfied appetite for pleasure. John is drawing a line saying, be in the world, love the world, because the world is a dark place that needs the light that you now have living inside of you, and yet don't love the world. That's a paradox, and yet it's not. John's warning is that a love for one cannot coexist with a love for the other. Remember what he said? He said, if you have love for the world and the things that this world can offer you, the love of the Father can't be in you. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's because one love will survive. One is going to overtake the other one. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. You can think about your own experience, or maybe an experience that you've kind of watched from the periphery. Maybe you've got a story that you've kind of watched play out from the periphery. And you've seen where a love for the world and a love for the pleasures of the world and a love for only what you can get out of the world and a love for God the Father, they can't coexist in the same soul because one's going to shut out the other one. It's just inevitable. And again, anything in the world can become sinful. It can become a sinful desire. Even the good things, like I'm telling you, food, that's an example. Good things can become warped, sinful. Food, an example. We could go on and on and on. Food's good, but it becomes sinful if we eat and eat and eat and overeat while the neighbor's over here starving. Yeah, it's a sin. I'll give you another example. Another example of this. Sex can be a great thing. It is a good thing. In fact, it is literally designed by God. Think about this, if you really kind of want to deepen that layer up a little bit. It was designed by God in detail, knowing how best His creation that He created and designed is going to thrive. Created by God in detail. However, according to Scripture, when experienced outside of God's protective guardrails, it can become a dark and sinful thing. That's another example. Good things can become sinful. Good things can become a fatal attraction. Why? If they go against what is best for you. And who gets to decide that? The designer, God, his best. And if it's against his best, that means it's not my best. And that leads with the question of, do I trust him or not? So, back to John, verse 16. For the world offers only a craving for physical pleasure. I think we can all understand that. I think we agree with that. All of us have different desires and physical cravings that all of us battle. Some's different than others. Mine's different than yours. Yours is different from mine. But we all understand exactly what John is referring to here. For the world offers only a craving for physical pleasure, a craving for everything we see. Right? That's like that billboard for me. Pride in our achievements and possessions. These are not from the Father, but are from the world. So again, I want you to go back. I asked you in the beginning to kind of pick out that one particular sin that you struggle with, whatever it is. Maybe it's big, maybe it's little, maybe it's recent. What is it that's tempting you toward it constantly? What is it that it can offer you that your body and your mind want so badly? What do you see or what do you hear that maybe plants the thought in your head to go ahead? It's so interesting how we think we've got something licked, whatever it is. You think you got something taken care of. You think you got something figured out. And then in the most weird, inopportune time, it pops right back up in your mind. And you're like, there it is again. What is it? What is that thing that pops up in your mind, that thing that you see? What happens after you think about it and linger on it for a period? What is it that makes it maybe a little bit easier to move in the direction of it? From the moment that it hits your mind, how long does it take you to act on the impulse? The reason I say all of that is because, let's be honest, the evil one's tactics have not changed in a very, very long time. In fact, from all the way back to the beginning. You know why? Because they're really good. They're really good. The evil one's tactics have not changed because they work very, very well. Because what worked in the garden after creation still works in your home today. Because every single one of us have desires for certain things. We have desires for control. We have desires for power. We have desires for satisfaction. We have desires for acceptance, sex, peace, love, money, on and on. I would argue that sex, power, and control are like the three big ones, and money. But these are all God-given desires. I want you to think about these things in that way. Every desire that you have is it's there because God created you, designed you a certain way. So it's there. But since God created you a certain way, God also designed a way for those things to be taken care of. God, as the designer of His creation, has a God-given plan in order to meet those needs in your life. They're there. It's there. The God-given plan, the God's best. It's there to meet those needs. And because He loves you, He loves the world, according to Jesus, and because He designed you, and again, back to our original definition of what really sin is, because He knows what's best for you, even if it goes against what you think is best for you. When it comes to God's plan for those desires that kind of are wired into us, really it just comes down to this question: do you trust that His way is the best way? Do you trust Him? Because the other side of the argument, the other side of the conversation, the evil one also knows the desires that humanity were created with. And the reason why is because he's got a lot of time of observation. And we ain't all that different. We may be different in some ways, but we're similar in a lot more. A lot of observation has shown the evil one really what it is that humanity struggles with the most. And so the evil one is more than willing to offer his own plan to satisfy those desires and those things that we just seem to want. Only his plan leads to captivity, addiction, and destruction. So, listen, since God loves you, He hates you. That's when I see something that I really, really want. What I really, really want is whatever it is that it can give to me. Right? That when I see it, how can it make me happy? How can it satisfy my flesh? How can it make me what I want to be? Whether it is sex, money, power, peace, love, acceptance, control, whatever it is. When I see that thing that can offer me the thing that my body wants more than anything else, It starts with our eyes, right? I mean, we know that. It starts with what we see. We look at it. 3 buns, man. It's got 3 buns. We look at it, and you know that special sauce. I know it's just Thousand Island dressing. I know that. I don't care. I don't even like Thousand Island dressing, and yet you put it on a sesame seed bun with some all beef special and all that. It's amazing. I see it. I want it. Not only do I see it and want it, I think about it, and I begin to think about what it can do for me. What it can do for my body. What can it do for me if I touch it, taste it, have it? To the point where, and listen, you may think, man, you are making a really big deal over a Big Mac. Maybe so, maybe so. Maybe it's not quite this serious. But it is in some other areas of my life. I'm just using Big Mac because I don't want to talk about some of the other things that I struggle with. Just like you don't either. I see it. I want it. And then it almost could become that all-consuming thing. The thing that would complete me, finish me, make me happy. If only I could have that and more of it and more of it. Then I'll be satisfied and it'll be sufficient. Of course, it never is. But it can become that fatal attraction. That is what John is writing about. Long, drawn-out process to get to that statement. That's what John means by a love for the things that the world can give you. Because the world can give you things that are going to satisfy your desires. It just is. But is it God's best? Is it God's best? And if it's not, it's sin. So the only question is what? Do you trust Him? Do you trust that God's way is the best way for you? Because the evil one's going to use what has always worked. It worked in the garden. Lust of the eyes. I see it and I want it. Lust of the flesh. What can it do for me? And the pride of life. It will complete me. It will make me all that I want to be. Look, Adam and Eve in the garden. That's exactly the way the evil one attacked them. Genesis chapter 3. The serpent was the shrewdest of all of the wild animals that the Lord God had made. One day he goes to the woman. He says, God really say you can't eat any of the fruit that comes from the tree in the garden? Is that really what God said? I mean, it starts by having us question God, right? Is that really what He said? And the woman said, well, yeah, we can eat the fruit from the trees. There's one we can't. There's this one, the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. We're not allowed to eat it. God said you can't eat it. You can't touch it. You're going to die. And then the evil one says, well, you won't die. You won't die. In fact, here's what's going to happen. God knows that your eyes are going to be opened as soon as you eat it. And so, in a way, you're going to be like God. You're going to know the difference between good and evil. You're going to know the difference between right and wrong. You're going to know the difference between light and darkness. You're going to know something that you don't know right now, and that's kind of going to make you like God. Wouldn't you like to be like God? Wouldn't you like to be in control? Wouldn't you like to be in charge? Wouldn't you like to be the boss of your own little island where no one gets to tell you what to do because you know what's best for you? In fact, ever since humanity knew the difference between right and wrong, good and evil, isn't it interesting how the fact that we know things aren't the way they ought to be, isn't it interesting how it's driving us crazy? We just know it's not the way it should be. Yeah, you know that. God knows when you eat, your eyes are going to be open. You're going to be like God, knowing good and evil. The woman was convinced. Why was she convinced? Well, she saw that the tree was very beautiful. It looked good. And its fruit looked delicious. It can do for me what I want it to do for me. It's going to satisfy these desires that have apparently been hardwired into me. And she wanted the wisdom that it would give her. She wanted to be complete. She wanted to be like, in this case, God. I'm in charge. I'm the boss. I'm the king. And so she takes it, she eats it, she gives it to her husband, he takes it, he eats it, and at that moment, we're told that their eyes were open, they suddenly felt shame in their nakedness, so they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. That is the way the evil one attacked Adam and Eve in the garden, however long ago that was. King David, same thing. King David, the evil one attacked King David the exact same way. Now, we know about how long ago this was. It's between 980 probably and 1000 BC, somewhere in that neighborhood. So what's that, 3,000 years ago? We're told that one afternoon after his midday rest, by the way, if anybody ever tries to give you any stuff about taking a nap, you point out at this. Of course, at the same time, you can say, well, it didn't turn out so good after his nap. So you do with that whatever you want. He takes a nap. He gets up. He goes out over the palace, the way the housing was at that time. Every house had a rooftop. And, you went out there and he looks and he sees a woman. She's beautiful, taking a bath. Well, he sees what he wants. That desire is there. It's in you. It's in me. It's in us. God put it there. It's hardwired into us. His plan or the evil one's plan? Which one's it going to be? He sees what he wants. He lingers on it. He sends someone to find out who she was. Her name's Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. David's married, doesn't matter. Bathsheba's married, doesn't matter. I want what I want, right? I want what I want, and I want it now. Pride of life, it's going to consume me. It's going to give me what I want. It's going to complete me. I can have it. I can take it. And he does. We're told that David sends a messenger to her. She is brought to the palace, and he sleeps with her. Of course, that sin gets a lot worse because then David commits murder to try to cover it up, and you can read about it. So, back to John's letter, John's warning. This is for all Christians. This is for baby Christians. This is for young Christians, more mature Christians, old, mature Christians, however you want to describe it. He's saying, Christ followers, listen. You can either be enslaved by the things that this world can give you, or you can be enslaved by the love of the Father. What's it going to be? Because these two things cannot coexist. They just can't. You can either say that God's plan, God's best is best for me, or I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And pay attention, because the evil one uses the same tricks that he's always been using. Lust of the eyes, I see it, I want it. Lust of the flesh, it's going to do something for me that I want. It's going to satisfy one of these desires that nobody had to tell me to have. They're just there. And if I can do it one more time, it's going to give me what I want. It's going to complete me. And we keep falling for it, myself included. Verse 17, and this world is fading away along with everything that people crave. John's just kind of making it's like almost a final plea here, saying, hey, the things of the world are passing away. Why would you want to cling to something that's doomed? This is a warning. He's being very clear. This is a warning. Why would you do that when you could do this? Why would you choose your way when God's best is here? Why? Why would you say, I don't trust God because that's what I want, even though what I want is not what God says is best? Anyone who does what pleases God will live forever. So, as we wrap it up, our reality check this morning, what John here is contrasting is the focus of our heart. It's the focus of our love. It's the thing that we want. It's the things that we see because of what they can do for me. The only question is, do I trust that my way is the best way, or do I say God's way is the best way? John's saying a follower of Jesus, a disciple of Christ, won't be characterized by sin, by love for the things of this world, by the dark things and the evil one, what is controlled by the evil one. Just as people that are not yet connected to God through Christ won't be characterized by a love for the Father or His gospel. Because those two things are opposite. They don't coexist. Not in the long term. They won't necessarily love repentance, while we remain repentant because we are convicted when we do not meet God's standard, His best. They hold grudges. We are supposed to be people that forgive. These two loves are incompatible. So, as the band's coming up, reality check. This is our reality check for today. What love would you say characterizes you? What does the direction of your life indicate about the actual love of your life? What is it that you really are going after? And how are you going after it in order to satisfy those desires that are there? Being in the world, but not of the world. It's a hard thing to do. There's tension there, and I know. So, This week, we want to help you be in the world, but not of the world. Be in a world that is in need of the good news of the gospel of Jesus and not of the world, chasing after the things that the dark world and the evil one promises. So, how do we do that? Well, we're going to give you a next step, very practical. In fact, if you saw my Facebook Live video earlier this week, you know what the next step is. We're going to give you something. When you leave this morning, there's going to be a couple of students. It's going to be Ella and Danica. They're going to be, I hope they're here anyway. They better be. They're going to be standing back there at the door. They're going to offer you this card. It's nothing special. It's just a business card. I think we got them from Vistaprint, more than likely. And they're going to offer you this card. And what we want you to do with this card, this is basically an activity, an exercise in being in the world but not of the world. Being in a world where you have good news and you want to share that good news with the world and yet not loving the things of this world. It's a good exercise. And what we want you to do, on the back of it, it's got 4 spaces, 4 white spaces. I don't know if you can see that all that well. Put it up there so the camera can see it. It's got 4 spaces. And we want you to think of anybody in your life that is either not yet connected to Jesus, they have never really had a clear presentation of the good news. Maybe they are not yet connected with the church. Maybe they were connected with the church, something happened, and they have been disconnected from a church. We're not talking about anybody that's connected with the church. That's not what we're talking about. We don't fish in other people's water. This is for anybody that is not yet connected with Jesus, connected with the church, and you would like to somehow possibly see them sitting beside you at some point, maybe Easter Sunday, maybe the week after. And what we want you to do is to put their name on it. We got 4 spaces. If you need more cards, take more cards. Put their name on there. And what we're asking you to do is this. Every day from now until Easter, just pray for them. Just talk to God about them. Just pray that somehow, some way, God will give you an opportunity to have a conversation. But we don't want you to just stop with prayer. We're asking you one time, at least minimum one time each week, do something for them. Sacrificially serve them. Sacrificially serve them. Show them love, grace, compassion, forgiveness, something that they probably don't deserve, so that maybe you will have the opportunity to invite. You will earn the right to invite. So that's what we want you to do. Take a card, take 2 cards, whatever you need. Put 1, 2, 3, 4, however many names. Every day, say a prayer for that person. At least once a week over the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks or so, do something sacrificially for that person. In the world, not of the world. Of the world meaning loving the darkness that we all know is here and is available and is readily offered. As soon as you walk out the door, it's there. In fact, it's available to you right now on your phone as you sit in here. We know that. Not of the world, but in the world. Because we have amazing good news, which is the news that, in fact, God did for you what you couldn't do for yourself. And He did for me what I couldn't do for myself. I couldn't be good enough. I couldn't be nice enough. I couldn't be kind enough in order to meet God's holy, just, righteous standard. And so God said, I'm going to do it for you. And that's what we celebrate in just a few weeks. So I hope you'll take this next step with us. If you have any questions, ask away. I'll be happy to do that. But for now, we're going to pray. We're going to have a couple more songs, and I hope you have an amazing week. And I hope that you take this step seriously so that we can be in a world that, as we all admit, is dark, and yet a world that needs the light of Jesus more than at any time ever. Let's pray. God, we are humbled by the fact that we get to be a part of your plan. We ask that you would take everything that we do and say here and magnify it in only ways that you can. Help us to be a church that's known for our love, a church that's known for our compassion, a church that's known for our grace, our forgiveness, our humbleness, as we attempt to live in a world that is dark and yet a world that needs your light and the love of the Father. And so, God, we ask you to just give us the wisdom to know what to do, give us the courage to do it. And it's your name we ask these things. Amen.